You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
If you disagree, you can leave. Conductor's July 4 swipe at foreign writers ends his job, based on an article by Maria Teresita Armstromata. Patriotism as a permission slip. Public power, not public mood. A seasonal conductor on Chattanooga's Incline Railway used the train intercom on July 4 to tell the very few Americans aboard Happy Independence Day, then added that anyone who disagreed with his view of the greatest country could leave. CARTA fired him the same day after video of the incident circulated. That is the basic fact pattern. The political meaning is sharper. A public-facing employee turned a transit car into a gatekeeping platform and used institutional authority to sort passengers into the real nation and everyone else. Who had the power? The person with actual institutional power here was not the passenger who recorded the video. It was CARTA management and ultimately CEO Charles Frazier. Peterson had a microphone, a uniform, and a public role on a city regional transit line. That is enough power to harass riders in the moment, but not enough to decide consequences. CARTA decided to fire him, then later let it be known that Frazier reached out to discuss whether there might be a path back to employment. That second move matters. It shows an agency that could recognize the damage only after public exposure, yet still felt entitled to soften the response once the immediate reputational threat passed. The language was the point. This was not a misunderstanding, and it was not awkward enthusiasm for the holiday. The conductor's remarks were exclusionary by design. To the very few Americans, and here is not patriotism. It is a public classification system. If you disagree, you can leave is not a joke. It is an instruction about belonging. Peterson's defense only confirms the intent. He framed dissent from his nationalist script as un-American and then tried to launder that exclusion through the language of free speech. That is how xenophobia and nativism routinely present themselves when they want cover as mere candor. Accountability came from exposure. CARTA acted because a passenger captured the incident, posted it, and the video traveled. The agency did not catch this through internal supervision, and there is no sign from the source that any broader culture prevented it. The immediate firing was the minimum possible response once the conduct became impossible to ignore. The more revealing fact is that a transit authority had to be forced by public evidence to treat open xenophobic behavior as disqualifying. Institutions like this do not fail only by endorsing the harm. They fail by allowing the behavior until it becomes too visible to keep. What the framing hides. The weak part of the story is any temptation to treat this as a single bad employee acting alone. Peterson's comments were his own. The structure that made them consequential was not. He spoke over a public intercom while representing a public authority on a publicly relevant holiday. That is institutional misconduct in miniature, private prejudice amplified by public office, then cleaned up after the fact with a statement about values. Values are cheap after the recording exists. The real question is why someone with that worldview was trusted to represent CARTA in the first place. The larger pattern. This is the familiar American pattern. Nationalist cruelty is treated as a lapse in tone until someone documents it. Then the institution performs outrage and tries to move on. Public agencies routinely depend on the appearance of neutrality while employing people who understand patriotism as permission to police who counts as American. The problem is not that one conductor was too honest. The problem is that the system still produces and tolerates these performances, then hopes discipline after exposure will pass for accountability. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voice of Joe. Thanks for listening.